Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Black Doctoral Network Conversation Starters. I am your host, Dr. Janelle C. Hall, and I'm happy to see each and every one of you. Tonight, during this segment, we will have an informative conversation about exploring the value of parental investment in graduate studies and the influence of support systems. I have three amazing guests with me tonight. First, we have Darius McInnes. Darius is an early childhood educator and native of Flint, Michigan. He is currently a fourth-year doctoral candidate in the writing, reading, and literacy program at Penn GSE. He is a 2020 Tillman Scholar, and his research interests include early childhood education, out-of-school literacy with an emphasis on summer break learning, family literacy, and racial literacy. Darius teaches literacy courses at Westchester University and assessment courses at Penn GSE. Welcome, future Dr. McInnes.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Thank you all for having me here.
Next, we have Tara Curtin. Tara Curtin is a preschool teacher and doctoral student specializing in early childhood education at Teachers College, Columbia University. Curtin is also an adjunct instructor consultant at Bank Street College of Education. She has consulted in public schools and pre-K centers facilitating professional learning opportunities on a variety of topics. Her teaching and research interests examine how teachers' preparation programs interrogate race, racism, and equity with pre-service teachers, especially early childhood educators. Additional research interests include special education and the endless possibilities that exist when schools develop partnerships with families. Welcome, future Dr. Curtin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hall. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me tonight.
Last but certainly not least, we have Margot Hickman. Margot is a high school theater educator with the Houston Independent School District and adjunct professor of theater at Abilene Christian University. She has recently appointed chair of equity, diversity, and inclusion and acceptance of the Texas Educational Theater Association, which has over 5,000 members throughout the state of Texas. Margot is also a doctoral candidate at Grand Canyon University, where she is finishing her doctorate in education with an emphasis of organizational leadership. Welcome, future Dr. Hickman.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. Glad to be here.
Let's get started. My first question: how would you describe the relationship between parental investment and graduate education? Darius?
Thank you, Dr. Hall. I would say this relationship is essential. I think that being at an institution that is not an HBCU and being a person who often tends to overcommit myself to things and just trying to be a perfectionist and with struggling to navigate this very tumultuous, it seems, journey that I'm on. I find that this relationship for me just has been vital, particularly as I transition out of the military. My dad is also a vet, so just giving me advice on how to become a civilian, how to just exist in society, again, before I went into the military. And then with my mother, she's been there for many, many, many nights when I just couldn't figure things out. And even though she's not going through the same process, I think the value of having a parent who knows you even before you go into grad school, I think that they, particularly with my parents, I think that they have been my shoulder, my rock, and certainly a sounding board.
Thank you. Tara?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Dara said. It's essential. I think this relationship is just something that I rely on. I relied on it from the very beginning when I started my program, especially because at that time I didn't know anyone else in my program. So that support meant so much. It still does, even though now I'm starting to gather, like, you gather your tribe, you gather your people, but the investment from my family will always be one of the most important things that are getting me through this period. I have children, and just sometimes knowing that my family can help, and if there's that deadline that I'm working on, or I'm thinking I'm not sure if I'm going to make it for this deadline, but I really want to push through, just knowing that they can maybe check in with me, make sure I'm okay, ask me how the kids are doing, ask me how my husband's doing, and just making sure that I have the support even when they're not physically present all the time. It's really important.
Thank you. Margot?
Well, I certainly agree with both of them. I'm on the wife, mother, grandmother end of this journey. And just to have the support, my parents are in their 80s. They have no clue what I'm talking about, but the support of them just listening, my mom just hearing me, my husband just leaving me alone and allowing me to be in the room to cry and boo-hoo, and my youngest child being at home and a college student as well. Just the supportive family is so important. They don't have to necessarily understand the journey, but to have that spiritual, emotional support is crucial for any level, especially graduate school. It is so important. Even financial. I think once you're in graduate school, if you could just pay one bill, I think about my kids, if you could allow them just to come home, and that takes the weight off, so they don't have to have that financial concern. Those things are so important to this journey. So I do agree with the other guest. It's important.
Thank you so much for sharing. But before we move further, I just would like to share with our audience a disclaimer. I would like to remind our viewers, as our guests share their intellectual property, please give them the proper credit for their contributions. Thank you. So what I'm hearing from that first question, mental and well-being, just that simple support, because this thing called life will still happen. So just having that check-in process, as you stated, Tara, and that mental well-being, that's important. That's all you need. That's all you need. As you said, Margot, your parents don't understand. But just that well-being of just knowing that they're there, that comforting, when you just need that woo-saw moment, that's paramount. Let's move on to our next question. What role should parents play in graduate students' academics journey? Let's start with you, Margot.
Well, like we said earlier, the role that they should play for graduate students' academic journey is just to be that listener. Just to, even there's certain points that I may have questions about them adding to what my dissertation is regarding, just being a prayer warrior, because I think you can't get enough of that. So on my academic journey from my parents, all I need for you is to be the biggest cheerleader, just to be that person that said, come on, let's pray, or calm down, you got this. I think those words, like future Dr. McInnes said, just the support of his parents, that his father just helping him transition to civilian life, that is so important to any student. And I think the academic journey starts in elementary school. It starts the first class you ever attend, reading to your kids, encouraging them to love education and academics. That's what's important, not hearing you complain about it. So I try to stay as positive as possible so that my children will embrace higher education.
Excellent. That's excellent. Tara?
Yes, definitely. I would echo everything that Margot said. And I think one of the other things for me, I started my program in the pandemic. So I'm in my second year of my doctoral program, and starting online was not something I had imagined for myself. I actually looked at programs that were online and I thought that's not the type of learner I am, at least not right now. So starting in that way was something that I had to kind of like shift my mind towards. And just having the support of my family, having them know that, I think what Darius had said before, kind of like knowing who you were before you started this program, like they know who I am. They don't know who I am in the context of starting a program in the middle of a pandemic. They know me. And especially for a lot of students of color, and I would say Black students, speaking for myself mostly, but I would say that imposter syndrome can be so real. And especially because the academy is not a place that was designed for us, right? Mm-hmm. It was not meant for our knowledges to be valued. And so having to adjust to that, having to adjust to, oh, I'm one of maybe the few people who look like me, and just kind of making sure that I know I belong, right? And even on those days where I had that doubt, having my mother or having my father be like, you got this, like there's no question. So that support was something that I still, like I said, it's really, really critical.
Thank you for that. Darius?
I think that both Margot and Tara said it perfectly. And I would just add that I would say a parent's role is like what I like to call casually an academic usher. And by that, I mean having a person being able to take you from one place to the next. And I think just to build on what Tara was saying before about just the history of the academy, you know, it is anti-Black by nature and by design. And in many cases, we enter this space, particularly folks who don't have other people in their lives who are in the academy. We deal with the realities of imposter syndrome. We deal with the realities of trying to change ourselves and bend and mold and twist to fit into what we think is the idea of the academy, right? And it is exhausting, and it is depressing, and it is debilitating often. And so what my parents have done for me is, you know, to be that usher, right? To take you from a place of chaos and disarray, and gently reminding us of who we are, right? And bringing us back to center, bringing us back to those core values and who we are.
I appreciate all your answers, especially Margot, when you said something in regards to your children, being that model for your children. I definitely did just that. I ensured that my children were at every graduation with my regalia on, proud. And I even did a shout out on the big Jumbotron. And it was like, Mommy, it was just something that they would remember, and something that I'm sure that will instill them that they want to do the same as well. And then I envy all three of you that you all have your parents with you in the flesh, because I truly don't have my parents. And when I finished my doctoral program, my mom, she had dementia. But I took a picture with her. I made sure I did that in my full regalia. But the look in her eyes, she couldn't articulate what she was thinking or feeling. But I saw the look in her eyes that she was proud. Immigrant from Trinidad and Tobago, but she was proud. And I knew the morals and values that she instilled with me. That right there played a huge role in my academic journey. So I just wanted to share. I know some of our parents have moved on from labor to reward. However, they have instilled in us so many values that it still held true through our academic journey. So I just wanted to drop that and say that as well for that question. So let's move on. How has the socio-political climate influenced parental involvement in academia? Let's start with you, Tara.
Sure. I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I'm still thinking about a lot is the fact that we're still in this ongoing pandemic, and it's just does not seem to want to go anywhere. And so knowing that my family is supportive as they are, that support may look different on different days because they're dealing with some of their own things that they have to deal with, given the pandemic and given the situation right now with just the way the country is and just the divisiveness and some of the other things that perhaps they're dealing with. So just having grace and knowing that they are giving me all that they can, and that's enough. right? That's more than enough. As long as I know that I have that support, that's the main thing that I rely on. And when they need the support in whatever way I can, giving it right back.
Right, right. We also have to support our parents through the academic journey because they're older now. So it's like vice versa. Darius?
I definitely, I think that for me and for many others, I think these are times that are just very ambiguous. We never seem to know what's happening next. With the pandemic, there's some guidance that comes out from the CDC. In Philly, they just dropped the mask mandate, and so now there's a lot that's happening on Penn and on Westchester. So having to navigate those two worlds with, do I wear a mask here? Do I not wear a mask there? And with what's happening around the world, and with Ukraine and Russia, I just think that we're just in a time where it's really hard to predict what's going to happen next. And I think that some normalcy helps to soothe the soul. And for me, my parents really helped to give me that familiarity and that love and that grounding in the midst of times that just seem so bleak and so unclear.
Thank you. Margot?
What I think about as a high school teacher, I try to give my students the same thing I need on my academic journey, the same thing I need from my parents, and that's just love and support. And so I'm reminded of being in the middle of a pandemic with protests and things going on in regards to George Floyd. And I have to add that I teach at the same high school that George Floyd attended. One of his nieces is one of my theater babies. And so being actively involved in that and trying to teach students and support that particular student during all of this was the same thing I needed from my parents. And that's just that love and support, no matter what level a student is on, whether that's just trying to get out of high school or just trying to graduate from college or even pursuing a graduate degree. We all need the same thing, and that's that love and support. So in this climate where you go from one thing to another thing, and now the whole Ukraine thing, kids are unsettled. We feel unsettled, but the main thing we can always rely on is just being a support and keeping a calm spirit. And as long as I stay calm and loving and encouraging to kids, it seems like that's the same thing I get back from my parents and from my husband and from my kids. So in this time that we're living in, it's just staying grounded, trusting God, and just loving on other people.
Excellent responses, and so true. I was just about to mention the Ukraine situation. That on top of the pandemic is just endless. What's next? I'm hearing there's something creeping up with COVID numbers, with another Omicron numbers. It's just endless. Again, this thing called life just continues to happen, and we can't have any control over it. Forging ahead. What influence does parental investments have on academic achievement? Margot, let's start with you again.
Parental investments. I think with my husband's an accountant. And so when I think investments, I look at returns. So if my parents invest in what I'm doing, then they benefit from that. Big time. I'm a caregiver for my father. So on top of trying to pursue a doctorate, trying to take care of somebody that's battling illness, all of those things, if I hadn't even got a master's so I could at least increase my income, then I wouldn't be able to help him at all. So I think investing in your children is key, giving them what they need academically, even just fake it till you make it. Act like you know what they're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it takes to support your babies is always it's a plus for any parent.
Again, I stand on your heels, Margot, because I think about that ROI, return on investment. You pour into your children, right? Because we have a lot of first gen. I'm a first gen. I don't know if you all are first gen, but when you first gen, that's the investment that your parents are seeking. Again, I told you, two immigrant families came together, a part of the American dream, whatever that looks like for individuals. So let's go to you, Darius.
I'm just going to build on what Margot was saying. With thinking about investment, I think time is also an investment. And that time, I think, particularly now in times where um, it seems like time was taken away from us, time away from our loved ones, time apart from family members, and a lot of time to ourselves. It's a very, I mean, it's a journey that's isolating even outside of a pandemic. And so I think time is a huge investment. I really do. I credit my parents and also my mentors because I consider them a part of that the support system that I have throughout my doctoral journey. And aside from time, I would also say that mentorship is an investment. And I do think that mentors can come from your field and also from your practice. But also, I think that you do need some mentors who know you even better than you know yourself.
Thank you. Tara?
Yes, I definitely agree with everything that has been said already. I think as I'm thinking about the investment, I really feel as though what I think Margot said it earlier about being the biggest cheerleader. So for me, one of the things that I think about is just how early that investment started, right? So I can't remember everything from my childhood, but I remember having someone read to me at night, and I remember having someone make sure that I knew. I laugh because my family, they have high expectations, and I just remember my mother, like, if I came home with like a 98, she'd be like, "What happened to those 2 points?" And I'm thinking, what happened to my 98? Just, celebrate that. But at the same time, I laugh because I think it was her way of early on saying, I believe that you can do this, and I believe in you, and so the motivation and just the happiness and the joy, like you would think, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, but as a first gen student, as someone has said before, I don't have the model for it, right? Like, not in my own family. So it's not like I could say, oh, I can look to say this is what it should look like, or this is what the journey looks like. But the joy and the happiness that I receive every day from them saying, we are so proud, or, celebrating that first article, or just, how are you? Just even checking in, how are your classes tonight? How you feeling? Did you eat? It's just little things like that. I think that investment starts early, and it's still there.
I'm in agreement. And just to qualify what you just said, Tara, I also, again, my parents, how they invested, they put me in Catholic school. For some reason, some families think putting you in Catholic school versus public school, that's their investment. So that's the first thing they did. They made sure I was in the best schools. So yes, so I just wanted to qualify your sentiments. Moving ahead. Next question. What are some additional support structures that are significant towards graduate student academic success? Darius?
I think building on something Tara said earlier, finding your tribe. I think that has been instrumental, even beyond just having my parents there, being at a school that is that's situated within Philadelphia, and folks who come from backgrounds that are nothing like a lot of the people who I get to interact with on a daily basis. Having people who I share a lot in common with, other folks who are first gen, other people who I can have conversations with, right? So like when um, Judge Brown Jackson, as she's getting confirmed, to be in the Supreme Court, I can't have conversations with everyone about like why she's being picked apart, so hard, as opposed to folks who came before her who were not Black women, right? And just beyond the conversations, it's just it's nice to share a space with people who see the world the ways in which you see the world, because this journey can be very intimidating, even when you submit a paper for a conference or for publication and it gets rejected. I think that as Black doctoral students, I think our first inkling is to think that we're insufficient, right, and that there's something wrong with us, where a lot of other folks may not, and your tribe is really there to help build you up, to lift you up, and to keep you up.
Excellent points. Excellent points. Margot?
I totally agree with you. That's the same thing I would say. It's just like-minded people, keeping just positivity all around you. Uh, Taking care of yourself, social, emotional support for yourself is so important. Self-care. That's what I would say, self-care. Saying no. One of my best friends in the whole wide world, I heard her speak, and her main thing that I carry with me is no is a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay to say no, because I would overextend myself, overbook myself a lot. And I had to learn no without explanation. Just no, no without feeling guilty. Just no, no without a bad attitude. I just can't do it. I'm pursuing this degree. So just self-care is what I would say.
And Margot, to qualify that, I wrote SEL. We always oftentimes share with students in high school, grammar school, but we never think about it for adults. We also need SEL, social emotional learning. It helps us with our mental health. Sometimes I've learned to say no. I've learned to say, you know what? I need to walk away from this computer because I'm not thinking, I'm not writing with clarity, I'm not writing in a concise manner. It's time for me to walk away. So I've learned that way. And during my doctoral journey, I lost a lot of friends because I couldn't do certain things because I was focused. So that definitely happened, just to qualify your sentiments. Tara?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was laughing, Margot, because I love that nose sentence. I just think that is everything. No, I agree. I think sometimes we feel like we have to say yes to certain things. And I think if you have the time and the capacity for it and it will bring you joy, sure, why not? But if you're saying yes for the wrong reasons, or if you're saying yes because you feel like someone will think a certain way, or you feel like that opportunity won't be there, I've gotten to the point now where I feel very comfortable and confident knowing that if it's in God's plan, it's going to be there for me whenever it's supposed to. So if I say no now, I don't have that fear that I once had where it's just like, oh my gosh, I have to say yes to this or else it won't be there. It will be there. It'll just come back around another time when it's the right time. So knowing that you can do that. And then the other thing I would say, the having and finding your tribe, essential. And you'll find them. And once you know who they are, and once you cultivate that tribe, you'll be appreciative of it, because those are the people who will check in on you when you're really ready to maybe say, I'm tired, I can't do this anymore. Or when you have a paper to hand in and there's 30 minutes left till the deadline. The other thing I would add is finding informal mentors. So informal mentors, yes, you might have your advisor or your sponsor, depending on where you are in the program, but finding those people who aren't officially your mentors, but who you can check in with, who you can talk to about their research. Maybe it aligns with your research, or just knowing that there are other supports there so that you're not depending on like that one person as your advisor or whoever the sponsor is. And using, if you're in a cohort model like me, using your cohort model and building with them. So realizing that you're cultivating relationships with them as well and supporting each other as best as you can.
Excellent. Yes, no is a sentence, Tara. I had actually, to qualify that as well, I had a board meeting. I sit on a board for the Boys and Girls Club in a neighboring town. So tonight was a board meeting. It was just before this. I said, you know what? I'm spreading myself too thin. I said, no. I asked someone from the committee, can you please stand in? Because I don't want to be frazzled before doing two different. No, I can't make it. As simple as that. As simple as that. I'm always at the meetings one time, so be it, Darius, do you want to add anything else?
No, I was just saying that I love the comment from the chat about the board of directors. That's interchangeable with tribe, because I think that they can go hand in hand, and
Yeah.
I do think that folks within your tribe can come from different areas.
Yes. Our next question, how significant is parental investment in Black scholarship? Let's start with you, Darius.
I would say significantly. I think great significance, particularly when it comes to staying true to our ideas. I think sometimes when you get in spaces like this, you can be pulled to want to research this or want to research that, or even on a darker note. I think sometimes tokenism can really come into play. Folks want you to be the face of everything just because you happen to be Black, right? And I think that having your parents or anyone from your tribe around to invest in you, just I was saying before, that time and to pull you back in, just to like remind you not just of who you are, but to stay true to who you are too, within your scholarship, within what you write about and how you navigate the academy.
I almost felt like you wanted to say, remember who you are and whose you are. That was also Margot.
Of course, I'm thinking about my own children. My oldest daughter is currently on Broadway. Nice. And so she's been in situations of being the only one. And the one thing my husband has always said is trying to put our children in a position to succeed. And so putting successful Black people around them, making sure there are Black images throughout the house, books, having dialogue, watching documentaries, sitting around the table, and more importantly, teaching them finances. Oh. So crucial. He is extremely frugal, and I thank God for him, because I will give every dime away if I'm not trying to buy something. I had to learn from him the importance of putting our children in a position of understanding finances. What more can you say? That alone speaks power, because green is powerful. So if they know how to manage that, what can't you do? With God and understanding your finances and having education behind you, nothing is impossible.
Finances. You should have just said that. And that was it. And dropped the mic. Because we need to teach our children how to be owners, not just consumers. And it's not taught in the curriculum in these different cities. There's different curriculum in each district. So one is teaching financial literacy. The next town over is not teaching it. Why is that? So now the onus is on the parents to ensure those things are taught. In other cultures, they don't. Why is it not in our culture, consistently taught? And it's not, we can't rely on the school system either. So it's a catch-22 with that. Tara, would you like to add on that?
Sure. I think I definitely agree with both Darius and Margot. From Margot's, I'm thinking a lot about the finances and just the idea that a lot of I'm thinking about how much it costs to go to graduate school. Let me just put it out there. I think I'm trying to dance around it. I'm thinking, how do I say this? But no, the cost of graduate school, right? And then how student loans tend to be predatory and, just the history of this country and the history of systemic racism and how Black generational wealth is not, it doesn't exist in the way that it does for white people. And that was very intentional. And so making those kind of connections around, like, I want to go to graduate school. I really hope I can go to graduate school, but can I afford it? Right. And then even knowing different sources to try to get funding. Right. So I think all of those things around investment and things that parents can hopefully do to help their children. And sometimes the parents don't know. Right. And so sometimes that's a part of it that's tricky, especially if you're a first gen student and they're trying to help you figure it out. But I'm just thinking about that aspect. But I feel like I was pretty lucky because my family, they tried to help me figure it out, or they tried to find other people who could help me figure it out. So, but I also want to acknowledge that wasn't necessarily easy for them. And there were probably things that they didn't know, I guess is what I'm saying. And then in terms of what Darius was saying about your scholarship and your family knowing who you are. I think that's so, so important, especially I think until you start to find your voice. Like I remember last year in my first year, I kept hearing, find your voice, find your voice. And I thought, what does that mean? I thought this was my voice. And, you know, what does that mean? And I'm reading all of these articles and I'm analyzing. And now that I'm comfortably in my second year, I get it, because I think there were times when I just knew which questions were burning for me. I felt like I want to dig into race. I want to dig into racial inequities. And I'm thinking about early childhood educators and why aren't we talking about race? And why do we act like we're talking about equity, but there's no conversations that should be essentially happening in these early years based on what we know about stereotypes forming and biases forming. So I think it's really important to kind of stay true to who you are, like Darius was saying, because those questions matter. And even if you haven't found people who have affirmed that yet, there are people at your institution, no doubt, who should affirm that. And if they're not, I'd say keep looking. Maybe look outside of your institution, but most likely you just keep looking and you will find that exact group of people who are doing some of the research that matches yours, or who might not be, but will still say this is worthy of researching. So hold on to your voice, find it, hold on to it, stay true to it, and just stay true to whatever questions brought you to the program in the first place.
Outstanding, Tara. The next question: what recommendations do you suggest that educational institutions implement to create supportive environments for Black students? Might I add, there was a comment that high schools do not offer financial literacy, and there was a recommendation in the chat that it should be part of the exit for when they graduate. So if there's a need, the students want it, and it should be implemented some way, somehow. Margo, let's start with you.
As soon as you said that, I thought about something that was implemented. I don't know if it was my district or just my school, but this year part of graduating was a workshop with interaction with the police. Teaching, because I teach at a school that's 90-some% African American. And so they had this huge workshop with how to interact with police, and all the officers that were there were African American. And I was like, wow, they need this. Probably need it in middle school, but because based on my own just discussion with my students, they've already had interactions with police, stopped and all of that. So that's something that definitely could be put in place on every level. Going into college, colleges doing it as well, engaging with the off-campus officers, because a lot of times people are stopped or profiled. It's just a number of things that can be put in place. I think about some of my students that have gone on to colleges in the rural areas of Texas, and having a different experience than students that have gone up north. And a lot of it has been racial. And so just putting things in place to make people a little bit more sensitive to things that they say, how to interact with other races of people, because I'm an adjunct professor, but none of the students look like me. So for some of them, I'm that first interaction with a Black theater instructor. And so the one thing I learned, and I think it was Darius said it, I had to learn to be myself, not to put on, not to fit in, but be me. And so I think teaching young people, not just Black students, but all of them, how to interact with each other. They're just things you don't say or don't do, or let's have the conversation. And so that's very important.
Thank you for that. And community policing, that should be brought into the schools. I did go to a program for teen boys, matter of fact, and there was a detective there, and she was showing them how you react when a cop pulls you over. This is what you're supposed to do. Comply, X, Y, and Z. And it also it brought to my remembrance the movie. Is it The Hate U Give? The movie where the dad was teaching the son and daughter how to put your hands on the dash. Don't move. But it's unfortunate that we have to teach our kids, put your hand on the dash, don't move. Say you moving your hand slowly to reach to the glove compartment. So it's very interesting. But I do agree with you. Darius?
Thank you. I would also say I think schools have to have some conversations with police on how to interact with Black folks too, and also I think schools need to do a better job of streamlining the resources around the campus for Black students, and to make this available to the parents. And I think the last thing, because I think that Margot dropped a lot of gems. And I would the last thing I would add is I think I've been very fortunate financially throughout like my program, but I do have friends at other schools, and I have to say I think that schools can do a better job of advocating for more financial aid for Black students, for to voice to use their platform to advocate, for loan cancellation, and especially if on your website, you boast these data points about how like how many Black students are on your campus, and you have Black students in the graphics on your program to try to attract more Black students to make it more diverse, then do the work, of not just bringing us here, but supporting us while we're here to get through the other side.
Excellent. Tara?
Yeah, I was definitely thinking along the same lines as what Darius just said about, so not just recruiting Black students, but what are you going to do to retain them, right? What are you going to do to make sure that they stay and that they thrive? Because if you're just bringing them in for numbers, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, I'm thinking a lot about affinity group spaces and how those have been helpful for me. I'm thinking about book clubs that I've been to through a mentor, a professor. So just thinking about different support systems that can exist at the school level. And then I'm still thinking about the conversation on police officers. And I do agree, like the fact that we're even talking about that there's something so sad to me about that, but it's reality. What I want to say though is, and what's so disturbing to me is, I just keep going back to that doesn't exist in all school spaces, right? We know that there are some schools like where predominantly white children go that they do not have those experiences, and that alone speaks to the need to have more critical conversations, more honest conversations, starting them as early as possible about the injustices that we see every day. I mean, a lot of times people say young children are too young to learn about race. And luckily I do a lot of research in that area. So I know that they're not. I'm a preschool teacher, and I know that they ask me like, why does your hair look like that? Why aren't you the same skin color as me? And so, I mean, no, they're definitely thinking about it. The adults around them would rather they not, but that doesn't mean it's the reality. So I think that schools need to higher education, especially in teacher preparation programs. I feel like if you're not having direct, explicit conversations about race, like what Margot just said about her being an adjunct and having students who don't look like her, I totally relate to that in different circumstances. And I think what is troubling sometimes is when that happens, when you try to have conversations. Like for me, I talk about race a lot. Like anyone, by now you probably know I talk about it often because I feel like, it doesn't help to not talk about it, but also because of the way it impacts our realities. And so I think sometimes when you have these conversations and students aren't used to that, the first thing that happens is there's a defensiveness, or there's I don't like this instructor because they're not teaching me what they're supposed to. And you going into someone's community thinking you know those children, thinking you know those families, I'd rather you not like me and have a different lens of who you're supposed to be serving as a teacher. So I just think that schools need to be more honest about this, and instead of just kind of like what Darius was saying, having these conversations about inclusive and diverse, like keep your words. I want to see receipts. So I just feel like, y'all, let's rethink this whole system right now.
And also going back to Darius, he also talked about equity, what's available. Because I did not know there's a lot of fellowship programs that fund your entire doctoral program. There's certain schools. I was like, I didn't know about this. So it was quiet, hush, hush. Certain people know your entire doctoral program paid. Where is this information? So that was also interesting. So our last question. How has your affiliation with the Black Doctoral Network helped to enhance you personally and or professionally? Tara?
Thank you. So for me, it has given me an opportunity to meet people in different institutions. I've been able to participate in the writing groups, which was a really good opportunity to meet people at other institutions, get to know some of their work, and just have some quiet time to do some writing. And then also being able to participate in the conference last year was a great opportunity to again meet some scholars across the country and share some of my work, learn alongside other scholars. So it's been a great thing to be a participant of. I'm really happy that I'm a member, and I look forward to continuing to learn and grow with the Black Doctoral Network.
Thank you. Darius? You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Just the fact that we have a space that's cultivated with folks just like us, folks who experience the isolation on campus, folks who may have some economic hardship, folks who may struggle with imposter syndrome and like how to navigate their program. And also the networking, there's, it's like almost every other day I see job postings. I see, folks who visit different, the campuses, and they may ask, like, where do I go eat, or like, what's around the town or like around the city that you're in, that you recommend, and also the writing groups. We have one that's coming up Tuesday. It's just a nice time to just be in a space where you don't feel like you have to pretend and you don't feel like you have to fake anything. And it's just being around people who look like you, folks who experience things that you do, and also, folks in your field. It's not many other Black men who I get to interact with who do work with early literacy. So I mean, these are just like a few of the blessings that I've been able to get from the BDN.
Thank you. Marga?
Well, I must give credit to my content expert, Dr. Darlene White, who introduced me to this particular group. And I was so excited because I was on that little island by myself. And I'm hopefully toward the end of my dissertation journey. So I plan to get more involved, but I have enjoyed what I have had the opportunity to participate in. And I just think it's important to have, again, that tribe, like-minded people. And that's what I've gotten out of it. Questions, insecurities, or doubts, I can return to this particular group of intelligent, beautiful people and grow and learn.
Excellent. While I have you, Margot, please share your contact information.
My website is Margot, let me start over, www.margotlhickman.com.
Thank you. Tara?
Hi, you can find me on Twitter at Tara R. Curtin, and it's TARARKIRTON. Thank you.
Darius?
You can catch me on Twitter, first name at DARIS, MCINNIS. Just a heads up, if you follow me, I retweet a lot of good news. So just a heads up.
And please follow BDN on Facebook, IG, and LinkedIn. We have some upcoming events. Please join us for our next month for our next episode of Conversation Starters, BDN Virtual Writing Retreat every other Tuesday, and our upcoming conference, Reimagining Our World Conference on April 20, 2022. Thank you all for joining us today. You were a breath of fresh air, great dialogue, and we see you soon.